So, the first presentation of this session belongs to Marius Daraškevičius, the boss, the head of this castle, and also he recently became an associated professor and my colleague at the Department of Art History and Theory. And he is really very famous for his energy and for interesting lectures. So, Mario, the stage is yours.
You see, I'm boss here in the castle, but actually in the Vilnius Art Academy, in the Department of Art History, she's my boss. So we are very happy to be flexible. So thank you, Lassa. The topic I want to present you, it's not exactly very much my field, because my field is architectural history, and now I'm putting myself in a very uncomfortable situation. We are going to talk about heritage studies more, about shared heritage, so this is for me a bit new field, but actually with this field I'm dealing for the last 5 years. I'm working on this castle, because this castle, it's a quite nice reflection of the cultural bridges across the Baltic Sea and even beyond further. So when we started to discuss with the colleagues 5 years ago what those bridges could be, so we made, I think, 12 brochures in different languages, and because we managed to find links with different countries, and that is quite interesting. And I think many manor houses has similar things, and with already the first lecture of Professor Sabina proved that. So let me go around those bridges and shape. This is a case study of Panemunė Castle, but when I will be talking, I think all of you will find something similar in your cases, in your manor houses, and in your countries as well. And this is not very unique in the sense. That's why the concept of manor houses as shared cultural heritage is best situated within the broader discourse of the shared built heritage, which encompasses architectural and urban legacies formed over centuries through complex interactions among diverse cultures, religions, and social structures. Built heritage serves as a repository of collective memory, identity, and historical experience, functioning simultaneously as a symbol of cultural pride and as a site of contestation. While some estates are actively celebrating and emblematic cultural landmarks, others are neglected, we already saw in the presentation before. Some of them transform or contested due to the layered and sometimes continuously histories they embody. The ICOMOS International Scientific Committee on Shared Built Heritage underscores the significance of protecting and conserving heritage shaped by multiple cultures and civilizations, noting that such sites hold meaning beyond national borders. Within this conceptual framework, the manorial heritage of the Baltic Sea region provides a particular compelling illustration of shared built heritage, revealing the intertwined histories of societies across the region. These estates are not merely architectural structures, they are material witnesses to the mobility of ideas, people, cultural practices across the Europe, reflecting centuries of social, political, and cultural exchange. Manorial estates in the Baltic region often exhibits a hybridization of architectural styles interwoven with local construction traditions. Transnational networks of noble families transmitted cultural practices, social norms, and aesthetic preferences across region, linking estates in Lithuania with counterparts in Germany, Poland, Sweden, and beyond. This transnational dimension underscores the need to analyze such estates beyond national narratives, highlighting the role as a dynamic places of European cultural labyrinth. This paper presented at this conference examines the castle as a case study of shared manorial heritage in the southeastern Baltic. Existing research on the Baltic manors largely focused on the stylistic features, on national histories, overlooking the transnational characters and the cultural complexity that shaped them. This study addresses the gap by exploring how noble networks influence castle and demonstrating its significance as shared European heritage. Recognizing Baltic Manors as shared heritage is particularly relevant today for fostering cross-border dialogue, guiding inclusive conservation and promoting cultural tourism, while also contributing to debate on memory, identity, and sustainable management of historic estates. Panemunė Castle illustrates that shared built heritage is not a fixed category, but a dynamic process of cultural entanglement, reinterpretation, and also consolidation. Its layered history refines the ICOMOS framework by showing that sharing encompasses both creativity, hybridity, and legacies of conflict, making Manors vital sites of transnational memory beyond national narratives. This study builds on prior researchers. For example, one of the earliest, Pinkus, also my colleague Utvilaitė, wrote an extensive study on this case. And my recent last year and this year investigations, which already published in Hungarian journal and also will be this autumn appearing in the Dutch journal Virtus, particularly actually addressing the Eperjes period and Gilgut period, which I will tell you soon, very soon. While also highlighting the need for future studies of the Igelsholm and Puslovsky periods. These names for you new, but you will soon understand why it's still missing. By employing a multidisciplinary case study methodology, the paper combines historical research, architectural and artistic historical analysis, and also cultural heritage perspectives. And by analyzing primary documents alongside the castle architectural evolution, the research highlights transnational influences and interconnections of noble networks across the Baltic region. This study situates Panemunė Castle within a theoretical framework that combines memory studies, transnationalism, and heritage studies, allowing for a nuanced understanding of Baltic Manors as a shared cultural heritage. Finally, the paper traces Panemunė Castle history chronologically, examining its 17th century transnational origins, 18th century architectural and ownership transformations, 19th century romanticization, and 21st century decline and revival. Each section demonstrates the castle's role as a shared Baltic manorial heritage, illustrating transnational cultural exchange and informing contemporary heritage preservation. The paper proceeds by examining castle's historic phases, architectural evolution, social networks, and contemporary significance, thereby providing a comprehensive understanding of Panemunė as a site of dynamic shared heritage. Manorial estates emerged in the late Middle Ages and during the 16th, 17th century. The Baltic Sea area was shaped by dynastic and religious conflicts. In the early 16th century, the Teutonic Order controlled much of the eastern Baltics, including parts of present-day Latvia and Estonia, while the Swedish Empire gradually expanded, acquired territories such as Finland and parts of the eastern Baltics. The Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, formed in the 16th century, held significant lands along the southern and eastern shores, where the Denmark and Norway dominated the western Baltics, including part of the present-day Denmark and southern Sweden. Manorial architecture in this period reflects the cosmopolitan nobility active in this region. In predominantly Catholic Poland and Lithuania, estates were influenced by southern Italian models of the Palladian villa, for example, in contrast to the austere facades of the Protestant Northern Europe. Nevertheless, cross-regional interactions were inevitable, as noble families maintained business and marital networks spanning multiple territories. In this picture you have two arrows, which is one pointing from the south, from the Italy, and another one from the west to north, which is going through the Germanic and Dutch links. The Panemunė Castle, constructed from 1604, exemplifies the layered character of shared architectural heritage. Its founder, the Hungarian-German nobleman János Melzer-Eperjes, married a Lithuanian woman, Uršula Giecūtna. The Melzer-Eperjes family belonged to an established German community in Eperjes, present-day Prešov, Slovakia, and settled there in the 13th century. János Melzer moved to the Grand Duchy of Lithuania during the reign of Stefan Batory in the second half of the 16th century. In Lithuania, he used inherited Melzer coat of arms granted to his father by the Holy Roman Emperor Ferdinand I, which was later extensively used to decorate Panemunė Castle. In 1601, he was granted Lithuanian nobility and citizenship, likely following participation in the Livonian Wars. Between 1595 and 1603, he acquired estates along the Manors river, eventually establishing his main residence in Panemunė, which remained at the family seat for 5 generations until the mid-18th century. The Meltzer Pt1 presumably collaborated with the Dutch Baltic architect Pt1, born in Dorpat, present-day Tartu, Estonia, which before the 1581 was a part of the bishopric of Dorpat under the influence of the Livonian order and Poland-Lithuania. Nonhard founded the first Builders and Carpenters Guild in Lithuania. He was a royal architect, had a house in Vilnius, a Renaissance suburban villa, and a manor in Agaičiūniškės, the picture you are seeing in front of you. From its inception, the castle reflects transnational artistic and cultural heritage exchanges. Historical documents reveal the close personal relationships between the Protestant Pt1 and Nonhard. In his will, Pt1 entrusted Nonhard and neighboring families with the care of his wife and children and after his death. As a result, the wife completed the castle while raising their 3 sons. Panemunė Castle, built in 6 years, between 604 and 610, features a trapezoidal courtyard with the main house in the southern tower on the east hill, actually the building which is now under the restoration. This is the original old main house of this castle. And it was completed by flanking tower in the north, gate, and the southwest tower with the prison. Auxiliary residential and storage buildings line the courtyard walls. So these are the number C and number D. These are the side buildings, and this is the gate entering. With some entrances to the garden sides over here in the west. Auxiliary, the castle exterior employs the Specklagen technique, a Netherlandish wall decoration altering dark gray and white plaster, imitating brick and sandstone patterns, typical for the 16th century Netherlandish architecture. So in the Netherlands, it's always red bricks and white stone. In Panemunė Castle, it's the same, but actually the red bricks were covered with the plaster, which is mixed with ashes, and instead of the limestones lines, this is plastered imitation of the limestone. So this is not a purely Specklagen, but a kind of Specklagen in just a decorative way. Actually, the courtyard facades, the research reveals that they are also decorated in the same style. The main house featured central vestibules, so this is the very central vestibule of the main house, the same which is now under renovation. On the both floors was also the same size, around 70 square meters vestibule. The external staircase, which is not remaining anymore, was outside, leading to Piano Nobile, to the 2nd level, and there were also 2 apartments on each floor on the south part of the castle. The Piano Nobile at the 2nd floor include also Sala Grande, so this is the ground floor, and the Sala Grande was on the top floor, these 2 windows of the main room, around the size of the same room we have here, with slightly higher ceilings. Also in the 17th century, whereas the Sala Grande was a sextagon tower built on this northern part, where it housed a chapel as well. However, the southeastern tower collapsed already in the late 17th century. Until that time, we don't have it anymore. But you still can see the fundaments if you will walk around the castle. Panemunė Castle thus exemplifies the transnational dynamics of Baltic manorial heritage, reflecting cultural, social, and architectural exchanges across Hungary, Germany, the Netherlands, and Lithuania. 18th century was marked in the Baltic Sea area with the Great Northern War and slow recovery after all. Great Northern War led Russia Empire gain control over Estonia, Livonia, and Ingria, establishing the Russian Empire as a dominant power in the region. However, 18th century Enlightenment reflects greatly on manorial heritage. They increased in size and buildings, and extremely popular, mostly French architectural prints made artistic ideas more fluid. Panemunė Castle in the mid-18th century passed into the hands of a Swedish Baltic German nobleman Igelström. The Igelström family of Swedish origin lineage can be traced to Ben Haraldsson of Nyvågård, whose descendants settled in Livonia in the early 17th century. Ben's son, Harald Bengtsson, served as a chamberlain to the Swedish governor of Livonia and was ennobled in 1645 under the name of von Igelström, with the title later confirmed in the Swedish House of Nobility. By the early 18th century, Harald's descendants had become firmly established in Livonia, following the disruption of the Great Northern War and the incorporation into the Russian Empire. The family maintained its prominent position among the Baltic nobility. In 1739, 5 brothers were elevated by King Augustus III of Poland to the rank of baron, thereby consolidating their status across multiple political jurisdictions. Leonard Johan Igelström, one of the 5 brothers, held several Livonian and Kurland estates, including Kodes and Kleisti. You see the pictures in front of you. In 1753, Epiriesh family sold Panemunė to Baron Colonel Leonard Johan Igelström, then elder of Gulbinai, which is in Latvia, Virginia, thus extending this landed possessions. This acquisition, however, proved temporary. In 1759, so very short period of only 6 years, Panemunė was sold again, illustrating the fluid estates transfers that characterized Baltic nobles' hand holdings practice in the 18th century. As a baron of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth and a nobleman simultaneously recognized within Swedish and Baltic German registers, Leonard Johan exemplifies the transitional character of the Baltic aristocracy. This life spanned a period of shifting sovereignty, from Swedish to Polish and ultimately Russian rule. Yet Igelström family consistently safeguarded its noble heritage and estates, subsequently attaining even higher ranks within the Russian Empire. They even reached the Count title later on. The last quarter of the 18th century was marked by gradual partitions of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, which divided its territories among Russia, Prussia, and Austria, profoundly altering the political landscape. Simultaneously, the period witnessed a significantly cultural flourishing. Notably, Vilnius University established an architectural, painting, and drawing and sculpture departments for the first time, fostering the training of local architects and artists and laying the groundwork for architectural and artistic developments in the first half of the 19th century. In 1759, Anthony Gilwood acquired Panemunė Castle and initiated substantial renovations after 1680. In 1783, Gilwood became General Elder of the Duchy of Samogitia, which is what is today half of the present-day Lithuania, actually, and married for the second time Barbara Judicka, the wealthy widow of the Baltic German Kazimir House, whose sizable dowry financed extensive renovation of the castle, at least partly. These factors underpinned the transformation of the estate into a grand family residence, benefiting a senator status, because he granted this position which he held as an elder. He put him in a very high position in the aristocratic circles. A key architectural intervention involved converting the original enclosed castle with an inner courtyard into U-shaped palace. Under the guidance of unknown architect, a western wing, where is now the hotel, was added because it was not existent before that. In the staircase, you can see the wooden open galleries from the 17th century. And it was dismantled northern flanking wing. In the courtyard you can see this small basement covered with the black, so that was the northern wing, which was dismantled in the late 18th century. The original main house, this eastern wing now, which is under renovation, became only one of the wings, the east wing, and the former south wing, where we are sitting now, was repurposed, and it became the main corpus, the main block. While the castle exterior from the garden side retained non-hurt Specklagen decoration, the inner courtyard facades were plastered and painted white, unifying the central block with the two wings, the old castle actually and the new built west wing. The interior spaces were reconfigured, with reception rooms relocated and interior decorated in the style inspired by the contemporary Pompeian excavations, reflecting both cosmopolitan taste and the influence of Enlightenment ideals. This renovation exemplifies how Panemunė Castle adopted the changing social, cultural, and aesthetic demands, demonstrating the integration of transnational architectural trends with the local Baltic expertise and reinforcing its roles as a shared cultural heritage site. After the final partitions of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth in 1795, the Russian Empire assumed control over the Eastern Baltic, including present-day Latvia, Estonia, Lithuania, Finland, and part of the Poland. This political shift brought Russian architects and administrators to the region, while many estates, particularly former royal holdings and lands nationalized after uprisings, came under the management of the Russian aristocracy. The 19th century was thus characterized by both imperial dominance and the emergence of national movements. The last Gilgut owner of the Panemunė Castle, brother Antony and Jan Gilgut, actively participated in the 1830-31 uprisings. Antony emerged as a leader in Lithuania, while Jan was forced into exile. Antony was executed and Jan relocated first to Prussia and later to the United Kingdom, where he and his son became prominent emigres with the Polish-Lithuanian diaspora, maintaining aspirations for national independence. Jan frequently visited Austrian-controlled Polish territories, and his son later married a Polish actress, continuing the family cultural ties. Among the most famous Gilgut in exile is 20th century actor Sir Arthur John Gilgut and the ballerina Mena Gilgut. She is now the head of the family. And actually, Arthur John Gilgut, he also owned the Manor estate in England, which after his death in 2000 was acquired by Tony Blair, the Prime Minister. So that was quite a catch. Following the uprising, Panemunė Castle was confiscated by Russian authorities and passed through several losses, losing its residential function and largely serving agricultural purposes. In 1868, the estate returned to the Gilgut family via maternal Puslovsky line, but remained primarily agricultural property. New constructions in Forward were designed to maintain stylistic unity with Renaissance castle, and neo-Renaissance U-shaped complex of farm buildings were erected, which is still partly existing, while the family resided in a newly built Italian-style manor house at Eleonora, which is not very far away and which is also did not exist anymore. The partly ruined castle became a source of inspiration for travelers, artists, and documented through several writings, sketches, and paintings as well. Over the 19th century, Panemunė Castle transformed from a symbol of aristocratic power into romanticized ruins, preserved more in a memory and artistic imagination than through continuous residence. Its layered history encapsulated the broader experience of Lithuania under imperial rule, reflecting the tensions between political dominion, national aspirations, and evolving cultural identities. The political and social disruption of the 20th century conclusively shaped the fate of manorial estates across the southern East Baltic. Following the World War I, emerging national movements led to the establishment of independent states. Finland declares independence in 1917, Poland, Estonia, Lithuania gained sovereignty thereafter. These developments initiated the early decline of the manorial system, as led land reform in most of these countries curtailed the power and influence of manor owners and triggered structural transformation. The definitive end of traditional manorial life occurred after World War II. Between 1940 and 1990, the Baltic states were occupied and annexed by the Soviet Union, a period marked by land nationalization and border reconfigurations. Poland and East Germany also fell under communistic regime, which was not in favor for long-standing manorial structures. Despite these political divergences, the shared experience of decline provides a common historical thread across the southern Baltic. Since the restoration of independence in 1990, renewed attention has focused on the cultural, historical, and architectural significance of Manors, with the discussions emphasizing revitalization, adaptive reuse, and integration into cultural tourism. The trajectory of Panemunė Castle exemplifies this transformation. Expropriated in 1925, 48 hectares of its lands were sold to the priest Antanas Petraitis, who later gave the estate to the Salesian congregation for the monastery, which was active only until 1948, when it was closed by Soviets. Then it was by Soviet administration, the site was repurposed, first as a machine and tractor station, so it became agricultural site again, and later as primary school of the village, which was established here. Since 1982, the castle has been under the Vilnius Academy of Art, which initiated systematic research and restoration. Adaptive reuse and gradually reproductive cultural functions. These are pictures from the 20th century, and this is very recent actually, only 20 years ago picture done. Adaptive reuse was gradually introduced cultural functions. A hotel and restaurant opened in the western wing in 2012, followed by a museum and art gallery in the central section in 2021. The eastern wing, which is scheduled for completion in 2027, to host workshops, library, and artistic studios. Panemunė Castle thus exemplifies broader regional trends, illustrating how manorial estates, once a symbol of aristocratic and political power, are being redefined in the post-Soviet era as a dynamic sites of the cultural heritage, education, and tourism. For the conclusions, Panemunė Castle exemplifies Baltic Manors as a transnational heritage site shaped by the novel networks and cultural exchanges of Baltic Sea area countries and beyond. Its architectural evolution from a typical closed courtyard castle with the 4 towers to a U-shaped palace, blending diverse European styles, reflecting countries of stylistic adaptations and cultural interaction. Shifts in ownership and political regime highlight that shared heritage encompasses both creative collaboration and contested legacies. The 19th century romanticization of the castle underscores its role as a symbol of repository and collective memory. Post-Soviet restoration and adoptive reuse for cultural, educational, and tourism purposes demonstrates how historic estates can function as living heritage. Recognizing Baltic Manors as a shared heritage requires conservation approaches attentive to layered histories, hybridity, and transnational identity, while further study of lesser-known ownership periods and comparative analysis of regional estates can deepen understanding of novel mobility, also architectural influence and shared European heritage. Thank you.
Questions from the audience? Maybe some explanations?
Yes, please.
Yes, maybe I can reply. Yes, thank you so much. I was thinking both for your presentation and now also your comment to that on this, that there are two sort of tracks. The Catholic one, you say maybe there is some similarity in the Lithuanian Polish part, and then the Protestant one. But standing here as a representative of Denmark in this network, I'm still thinking that there is a Western one and an Eastern one. And I think that Denmark somehow doesn't belong to this. When we did the exhibition with the plates for the last project, we kind of wrote that into the story. Of course, we wrote about how, of course, the divide between communism and not communism has had some influence on how these manors lived. But also it's very clear that architecturally and culturally in Denmark, people were very oriented towards the west, so it was Schleswig-Holstein and not Mecklenburg-Vorpommern, even though some of our local families came from Mecklenburg-Vorpommern. But I think